SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Will East in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music. Morning there, Will.
Beautiful.
Man, isn't it though?
Morning.
It's awesome. It is that time of year. And yesterday after the show, once the winds subsided, it was just a gorgeous evening as well. That's this time of year. Can't we have like several months of this?
Yeah.
Now you know why people pay an arm and a leg to live in California, because it is like this
every day.
Almost every day.
With
correct.
No, in Southern California, no rain.
Right.
Never rains.
Right. It's a plus and a minus, of course, because then you're always worried about how we're going to live without water. They rely on the north, as you know. And they are getting a lot of rain out there, and so that situation is a little better. It's here that we're experiencing a bit of a drought, right? I mean, lots of warnings and things.
April showers have not...
Hadn't happened. No. Typically it could be extremely wet, and then those fronts move through, and we got a little dousing of that over the weekend, but not a huge rain event. But we did get a little bit. I think a little bit in store for us this weekend as well. But it's not like big gushers that we typically get. And I know this is a concern for our farmers in the state of Mississippi as well. Man, it's lots of factors at play that are causing problems for the fabulous agricultural community of the state of Mississippi. And, in fact, we were scheduled to talk to Mike McCormick from Mississippi Farm Bureau right here in the building yesterday. Something came up. He ended up having to cancel, but we'll get him back on and get his take, what he's hearing from the agricultural industry in our state. We talked to Commissioner Andy Gibson last week when we did our remote out at Holyfield Pest Management, Flowood. Brand new operation out there. Congratulations to those guys. Thanks for having us out for that. But he talked about the numerous headwinds that farmers are facing. They got tariffs. They got high fertilizer prices. You've got the drought conditions as well going on. And I also saw a report, Will, that the cattle farmers are actually faring pretty well because there is an elevated price due to the shortage and just of the herd caused by the drought situations across the country. But I saw a report yesterday indicating expect prices to go even higher. It's already getting to the point where only the wealthiest in our country can afford the beef.
It's
expensive.
And it's going to keep. It's all these factors that are going on across the world.
Yeah,
that are impacting it, plus weather conditions.
Right.
In Mississippi, beef has done pretty good. As far as the industry as a whole, yes, prices are going up for consumers. It's those row crop farmers.
That's right.
Those are the ones that are really struggling because I'm not talking about soybeans. I'm talking about your corn especially.
Yeah.
I think I read the other day they're going to plant 50% less corn in the state of Mississippi than they did the year before because the fertilizer prices are crazy. And the prices on that stuff, although it increases, for some reason, it increases at the supermarket, but doesn't the farmers aren't getting it. I don't know where it's going, but it's
corn though has been problematic as a crop on which a reasonable profit can be made really across the country, not just, of course, here in the state of Mississippi, but seeing reports that I'm not sure what all the factors are that are causing those negative conditions, but certainly a problem. I've been watching the markets this morning. Man, topsy-turvy, as Rhino likes to say, the kangaroo hopping all over the place, back and forth across the unchanged line. Earlier in the session was up as much as almost 400, now up down 17. When we started the show, it was down, actually. It crossed over into the red. But it's all about what's going on in Islamabad, Pakistan. As Barack Obama used to say, Pakistan. But it's Operation Epic Fury. The president, of course, has issued an ultimatum, says, you guys better come to the table, negotiate in good faith, and cut a deal with us, or we are going to destroy your power plants and your bridges. And he says the ceasefire will end. And so now the question is this actually going to happen? And it's unclear as to the good faith level of the regime of Iran, whether or not they are going to negotiate in good faith and try to cut a deal, or are they going to play hardball and stand pat and say, no, we're not giving up our uranium, and we are controlling the Strait of Hormuz. Some analysts, these are generally Trump detractors, say, well, Iran actually has all the cards. I don't know if I totally agree with that, but it certainly is a concern. But markets are on edge at a minimum, trying to handicap and second-guess what might happen. It's interesting to me, as someone who watches markets on a daily basis and have for several years, mainly because it was necessary to keep up what was going on in business as a business person. But we went from being hyper-focused on watching the Fed. Now we're watching the war. It's like the Fed is sort of secondary to the war, because the war and its disruption, mainly to the supply of oil, can wreak havoc on global economies. And that's exactly what's happening. So investors are anticipating when there may be a resolution to get things back to normal, and that's kind of what they're doing right now, in wait-and-see mode. And speaking of the Fed, Kevin Warsh, he, of course, the president's selection to be the Federal Reserve chairman, his hearing begins today. Now, I think ultimately he's going to get approved. I really do. But there's no doubt the Democrats are going to grandstand, you know that, and they're going to try to make a big old deal out of this and probably dig up all kinds of crazy stuff that actually isn't true about Kevin Warsh. There's no doubt he is incredibly qualified. No doubt about that. However, Will, he has a history of being a little more hawkish, meaning when you think about what the Fed controls, that's the benchmark interest rate and what's called the open market operations, where they can buy and sell bonds, and that controls liquidity, and that affects interest rates and funds available for loaning and so forth. But the bottom line is hawkish from a monetary perspective, which means he has a tendency to lean towards higher interest rates to keep inflation at bay. I don't know how that's going to mix very well with the president, who has been demanding that Fed Chairman Jerome Powell cut interest rates immediately. I mean, he's really been all over him. And yesterday I caught one of those quick interviews by the press with the president, who you have to give it to him, Will. Whenever he's traveling on foot, moving on foot between the White House and Air Force One or Marine One to go to Air Force One, right there where all the press are hunkered down, which is where Houston and I walked right by that. It's called Pebble Beach, bunch of tents there, just off the west side of the White House, and a road that kind of forks and separates them. The road makes a circular path in front of the White House. It goes to the right to where we were in the Eisenhower building. And between that and the main road there on the front where the Secret Service is, there's about 10 tents. They're tents. And that's where the press is hunkered down. And so when the president comes out of the west wing there, it's on the west side, en route to Marine One, that's where they commandeer him, right?
Yeah.
He's always good about answering questions. He never just says, I'll see you later, like the previous guy did. Or, oh, well, they're telling me I got to go. And he will just talk and talk and talk, which I love about this president. But they asked him about Jerome Powell, hinting that he just may stay around. He says, well, if he does, I'm firing him. Good for you. Exactly right. I love that. We're taking a break right here from the Element Wealth Studio. Just getting started at 10:35 today. It's Danielle Morgan, Executive Director of the Mississippi Tourism Association. In the Element Wealth Studio in Hour 2, it's Dr. Dan Edney, the State Health Officer. Stay with us. Coming right back.
America's 250th.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
We're rolling.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so awesome.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
The president says just a little while ago, and he said this on CNBC. He was interviewed on Squawk Box. That's one of the morning programs on CNBC. That I don't want to bomb, but we don't have much time. And he said they have to negotiate. Quote, and the one thing I say is this: Iran can get themselves at a very good footing. If they make a deal, they can make themselves into a strong nation again, a wonderful nation again. But he also said, I expect to be bombing if they don't negotiate this deal. Wow. So, yeah, I expect to be bombing because I think that's a better attitude to go in with. That's his message this morning, and I think that's got the markets a little rattled, and I believe the ceasefire ends at midnight tonight, Eastern Time. And so, according to those very strong and direct statements by the president, maybe the bombs will start rolling again. Don't know. I'm hoping that they work this thing out. Crude oil up $2.83 to $92.44. He said that they're looking at doing some funding to expedite, he being the president, expedite the exploration of petroleum, coal, and gas in this country to try to just make up for the decline in overall global supply. Here at home, the Jackson Airport funding that was included in one of the measures sent to the governor last week didn't make it. The governor vetoed it. He said, quote, I am not for giving your money away to any entity that has wasted millions on lawyer fees that could have been spent on infrastructure improvements, especially if that lawsuit is against the state of Mississippi. Makes sense to me. Wait, you want money from an entity you sued? Uh-huh. He said that this funding bill was presented as a constitutional ruse. SB 2189 is an appropriations bill, not a general bill, as the legislature passed it off to be. So he didn't really specify the Jackson Airport in the social media post, but there's no doubt that's what he's referring to. The airport authority and the state, this has been going on for over a decade. The state in 2016 attempted to create a new regional airport authority that was not exclusively controlled by the capital city. Right now, the way it works is the mayor of Jackson appoints members of the airport authority, and the city council confirms them. The 2016 law would change that practice with these airport authority members being appointed by state and regional leaders instead of just from Rankin and Madison counties. Including from Rankin and Madison counties, not just those who the city municipal government sees fit. So the city said, the airport authority said that they're disappointed, that was their word, in the governor's veto. It was $500,000. The authority is looking for $2.5 million in matching money. So I will say this, the airport, it needs a makeover. There's no doubt. And it's one of those things, Will, when folks are traveling to Mississippi and they pass through, they land at the Jackson Airport, it's the first thing they see if they've never been here before. I would say overall doesn't project that favorable of an impression. And I say that compared to other airports, and I've been to a bunch of them in my business career across the country, large and those of cities of similar size. This may be the worst, honestly. So it needs some renovation. It needs some remodeling, needs a makeover. How to go about paying for that is a different story, and I certainly understand what the governor's saying here. Wait, you guys sued us because we just tried to change the governance structure somewhat, which I think would be a good change, personally. I don't think it should be solely under the purview of the city government here in the capital city. I think that would be a good move, but the governor made it clear, not really keen on giving you some money, given that you're suing us and that there's some other things that we need to spend money on. Again, I'd like to see something done about the airport to make it better. I think that would be in our best interest as a state overall. Back to this hearing for Kevin Warsh today, something I didn't point out a minute ago is that there is at least one Republican that has indicated he wouldn't approve the nomination, and that's Senator Tom Tillis from North Carolina. He says until the Department of Justice concludes an investigation into Powell. Remember that launched not so long ago? And he thinks that's inappropriate and wants to see that dismissed, that investigation of the current Fed chairman terminated before he signs on to support the new nominee. National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett has been saying, I've caught him in numerous interviews expressing support for the president's pick in Warsh. He says he expects Warsh, who is, by the way, a former Fed governor, to ultimately be approved. I do too. It's
and Tillis, by the way, isn't he up for re-election?
I think he's decided he's not running for re-election, right? Because there's a contentious race going on out there right
the
now.
Former governor,
right? Who's? I was about to talk about that. As a matter of fact, the Senate races. North Carolina is certainly in focus, and the reason is because it's one where it's one of those seats that Democrats believe they can flip. Okay, so here's the way that the map sets up, the landscape sets up for the United States Senate balance of power. There are 13 seats that Democrats currently hold, that if they retain them, they just need 4 more to flip the balance of power. And those 4 would be, of course, currently held by Republicans. One of those is North Carolina. So here's what's interesting to look at, Will. Of the 13 they currently hold, you would have to look at the last presidential election to some extent as an indicator of the way the outcome may shake out. 2 of those 13 went for the president by a little bit in 24. One of those is Michigan, the other is Georgia. Both of those have Senate seats up for re-election. Both are held by Democrats, but both went for Trump in 24. Read into that what you will. And then there are 4 other seats that are held by Republicans that are thought to be in play for Democrats. One of those is Maine. That's the one held by Susan Collins, who might as well be a Democrat, but she does get pulled in the Republican direction here and then. She's certainly better than a pure Democrat. Let's put it that way. And by the way, this pejorative, because it really is a pejorative, rhino, I don't use it a lot, if ever. She pretty much fits that description more than maybe anybody else in the country that is affiliated with the Republican Party, only to be equal to what's her name, Murkowski out in Alaska. Yeah, both of those are really squishy Republicans, but Maine is one. North Carolina, Ohio, and Alaska are thought to be races that Democrats can flip. Maine went for Harris. The other 3 went for Trump in 24. Read into that what you will. We're coming right back with Danielle Morgan, Executive Director of the Mississippi Tourism Association. We are in the Element Wealth Studio.
From this
Attention, adoring fans! It's time for
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
When I was 16, I knew everything. Opportunity grew on trees. I'd taste them, waste them, do it all again. 10 feet tall, invincible.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. We welcome now Danielle Morgan, Executive Director of the Mississippi Tourism Association. Hey, Danielle.
Hey, Gerard. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. So Will and I were just talking about this Chamber of Commerce weather that is draped across the great state of Mississippi here the last couple of days, and looks like it's going to be with us another couple of days. It is April in Mississippi, one of the most delightful times of year for sure here in the Deep South, and I got to believe we look pretty attractive to tourists that are maybe trying to escape the cold, dark, gray winters. Come on down here to Mississippi.
That's right. It has been incredible, and it's such a great time of year to get outside. We've had a dry spring, so that's maybe not a great thing in some aspects for our gardens, but it's been great weather for sure. A lot of wonderful events happening. I always joke and say there's a couple of months in Mississippi where the weather's delightful, and we cram everything into those months. So big weekend in the state for sure.
All right, well, tell us what's going on.
So you've got Double Decker happening in Oxford. A lot of great artisans and musicians. Going to be a great weekend there. You've got the Starkville Derby in Starkville this weekend with the Wiener Dog race, where, as they say, where wieners are winners. So that's very exciting, as well as Super Bulldog weekend. Lots of things happening around the state. So great time to get out and enjoy the weather. We might get a little rain this weekend, but little rain doesn't stop the party. So
yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's going to be a washout or anything. So what about this legislative session that's finally in the rearview mirror? Anything in particular you were tracking? You guys were looking to get passed? How'd we do?
You know, we did okay. We of course, there was some legislation out of the Senate to make Visit Mississippi an independent agency. Unfortunately, that did not make it through the House. Made it through both chambers last year. Had some sort of budgetary issues with that situation. So unfortunately, that did not make it out. We were really excited about that. We felt like that was a great way to elevate and prioritize tourism, which is Mississippi's fourth largest industry, you know, employing 1 in 13 people in the state, over 136,000 people. So, but some great things did come out of it. A lot of, you know, good legislation that'll be beneficial to tourism. We're going to be starting on our phase 2 of our workforce initiative that we started in 2024, Heart of Hospitality. So we've got some great things. We're planning to work on that next year. And so all in all, you know, peaks and valleys, as they say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, not too bad. One of the things that's always stood out to me, Danielle, in Mississippi, is all of our great municipal communities that have all these various festivals and just big events throughout the year, honestly, and to call attention to usually some theme that's affiliated with that area. There's so many of them, too many to list, but this is a pretty big deal for the tourism industry in our state, I would think, huh?
Absolutely. You know, I think we're starting to see cities and city leadership understand that quality of life and quality of place is crucial to economic development success. And so tourism is a big part of that. You know, we always say it. You know, you've heard the saying, if you build it, they will come. But truly, if you program it, they will come. So you can have all the great infrastructure, but you have to have a lot of, you know, activities in place and things to bring people out. And what's good for a visitor is also good for the community. So I think we're seeing cities understand that. There's been some incredible investments. There was the Main Street projects that passed this year. That's been a couple of years in the works, but that's going to transform a lot of these communities and just make them more vibrant, amazing places to live and work.
Yeah. Okay.
And visit, of course.
Gotcha. So what do the numbers look like? How are we doing with respect to tourism in the state of Mississippi over the last several months, last year?
The numbers look great. Last year, you know, was another record-breaking year. We saw 44.2 million visitors with an overall impact of $18 billion. So tremendous. This year we're tracking about 8% over last year, which is, you know, we're seeing some flattening across the country, but Mississippi's faring really well. Now I will say we're seeing the end of those federal ARPA dollars that we've enjoyed for the last several years. That will end later this year. So that's going to be you know, a big loss for tourism marketing, but we see that those dollars have made a tremendous difference in how we're faring with competitors.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. The no secret, the price of gas is elevated considerably, certainly from where it was a couple of short months ago. Are you expecting that to be a factor in tourism this coming summer?
I think it is a factor. I think travel intent is still pretty strong when we're seeing the data come in. People will give up other things before they give up their vacations. So we're hopeful. But you definitely see. I mean, I know me and my family, we think about it a little more than we would when, you know, things are less expensive. So I think we're seeing a little of that. But I think Mississippi's really holding strong, fortunately, so far. But of course, we're watching those trends and making sure that that it doesn't affect us too bad.
Yeah, I understand. Well, it's certainly something that is getting a lot of attention, and some of the big travel outfits are calling attention to it and indicating that it could have a negative impact on the busy upcoming travel season, but hopefully that won't be the case. Danielle, to any extent, does the Mississippi Tourism Association, do you guys collaborate with peer organizations, if you will, in the other states or the neighboring states? How does that work?
Absolutely. We have a group through Destinations International, which is a global tourism organization, and we've started a state association group that's been incredibly valuable. We have pretty regular meetings where we talk about, we're all dealing with a lot of the same issues, and so it's been super valuable for us. And then in state, we also work with partners like Main Street, MEDC, MEC, all of those great organizations that we work together with. And so we're excited for all the great things happening for our state. It really is, the more we collaborate and work together, the stronger Mississippi will be. So we're excited for those partnerships and certainly celebrate all those successes on the economic development and community development front, as well as tourism. Yeah,
no doubt. I would think that there would be some value in just working with the other similar organizations, and maybe even share some best practices and talk about things you tried maybe didn't work so well, so that you can avoid that if others have potentially made that mistake. We have so much to offer here, though. Right. I think our state is well positioned for even more tourists. I think there just a word is getting out about our state, and I feel like it may be sparking curiosity.
Absolutely. I think, there's been an incredible amount of interest, and you see when people visit, we always say, if we ever get them here, we have them forever.
Yeah.
I think once people visit the state, they fall in love with it, and it's truly our people. We have a lot of great tourism assets, but really the people are the greatest asset, and the hospitality that people experience. You just don't get that everywhere, and it's a very genuine an authentic experience. And I think that's what I hear time and time again from visitors. Like, what makes Mississippi so special is truly our people.
Yeah, and they come here and they experience those people and all the other attractions and amenities, and they're like us. They get hooked. We've always known it, but when they come here, it opens their eyes. And, likely they go back and tell others, and that just leads to more traveling to our state.
Absolutely. It's certainly word of mouth is the best tourism attractant there is. That's for certain.
Yeah. So anything you're talking to the legislature next year that you'd like to see get done from a tourism perspective?
Well, we're taking April off.
Yeah, sure.
to recover. No, but we'll start planning. We just recently did a new strategic plan for our association, so we'll be working with our board of directors this summer to plot out our course for the future and what is next.
Okay.
But we will certainly continue working to grow tourism.
Okay. Danielle Morgan, Executive Director of the Mississippi Tourism Association, has been our guest on Middays. Thanks for coming on, Danielle. Appreciate it. Always good talking to you.
Thanks, Gerard.
Yep.
You too. Have a great day.
We're coming right back in the Element Wealth Studio.
Come on. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
All right, we are back
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Southern nights. Have you ever felt a southern
So Fox's Brian Kilmeade, he's blaming Mayor Zoran Mondani for the Mets' 11-game losing streak because he hugged the Mets mascot last week. He said he put the curse on him. I'll say this about Mondani. Have you ever seen a guy be so happy about raising taxes?
Oh, man, he loves it.
It just floats his boat, man, his little socialist boat. He's like on cloud nine, ecstatic, euphoric because he's raising taxes.
Do you follow the Babylon Bee, the satirical conservative?
Oh, yeah.
You've interviewed the guy, the founder of it.
He's awesome, yep.
Yeah, they had a headline the other day that said, Mamdani orders visiting teams to redistribute some of their runs to the Mets.
So good. Oh, man. Well, they're in an 11-game hole right now. And it happened right after he hugged the mascot. So they're attributing it to that embrace by the socialist mayor. Again, just celebrating tax increases. These people are sick. There's no doubt about it. On the C Spire text line, that's 601-879-4395. It's wide open. What was the tanker carrying that we stopped? Yeah, actually blew a hole in it. It was an Iranian-flagged container ship that was at least suspected of carrying what they call dual-use cargo items for public consumption, but also potentially some for military use, suspected of transporting food, medicine, clothing, and technology aimed at supporting Iran, despite the blockade. So, 900-foot-long vessel. Man, that's a big one. The Tuska, Touska. That's the one. It's the USS Spruance is the ship of the United States Navy that fired on this vessel, targeting the engine room. We talked about it yesterday. 6 hours they were in communication with those aboard the Iranian ship, the American captain of the USS Spruance, and warned, we're going to blow up your engine room. They went on and on and on and on for 6 hours. All you got to do is turn around. They wouldn't. I guess they called the old bluff, and they found out. So that's the situation.
I just pulled up the New York Post because they have the best headlines.
Oh, yeah.
And going back to your Mets story about Mamdani, their headline this morning was Curse of the Mambino.
A play, of course, on the great Bambino, Babe Ruth. That is awesome. Oh, Mambino.
Man, have you seen what Senator Chris Murphy tweeted out about that ship that kind of got through the blockade?
I just did. It's making that news now. Tell the folks.
So, Chris Murphy, senator, I believe from Connecticut, has 2028 aspirations. Well, there was this one ship that broke through the U.S. blockade.
Yep.
He put on Twitter, or X, or whatever you call it, awesome.
I'm looking at the tweet. That's what he said. You're a damn traitor. There's no doubt.
Awesome. That was his only response.
You've committed treason. I'm telling you, well, these Democrats, they hate Trump so much, and their entire political theme, their narrative is built around hating Trump. They want this country to fail. I used to not believe it. I just said, no, nobody's that stupid. But with respect to this war, I get the distinct feeling that they want America to fail and Iran to prevail, because if America prevails, the credit is going to go to the president, and they can't deal with that.
He later said, okay, Twitter, I can't believe I need to clarify this, but obviously Trump's bungled mismanagement of this war is not, quote, awesome. As I have said a million times here, it is a disaster and he should end the war immediately. My tweet was something called, quote, sarcasm.
Oh, my gosh. Quit spinning it. This is a United States senator. That's unacceptable. Inappropriate. Jeez. Man, oh man. That's just sad to think that that's going on in this country, that we have someone sitting in the United States Senate that appears to be rooting for an enemy over America. What happened to that swearing on the Bible and taking an oath and that sort of stuff? Is that just irrelevant? Doesn't mean anything anymore? Evidently. You people are sick, Chris Murphy. You don't deserve to be in the United States Senate. Time for a break. Fox News, SuperTalk News is coming your way, and then it's Dr. Dan Edney, Mississippi's State Health Officer.
Stop this world from fighting. Down, 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 down,
Of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Hour 2 of Middays live from the Element Wealth Studio. We're pleased to welcome now Dr. Dan Edney. He serves as the state's health officer, runs the Mississippi Department of Health. Dr. Edney, always good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Oh, thank you. Always glad to be here.
All right, so let's talk first about you're being mentioned as possibly the director of the Centers for Disease Control, and you ultimately decided to take your hat out of the ring there.
Yeah, how crazy was that?
Well, I don't know. Tell us about it.
Did not have that on my bingo card, Gerard.
I was so impressed, and I told you you'd be awesome at that job. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm getting a call from the White House staff, out of the blue, because this is not something I applied for, but asking if I'd be willing to interview, and how do you say no to that? But
sure.
I did let everybody know from the first phone call to the last that I was happy. I love my job. Was really excited. Progress we're making in Mississippi. Had felt called providentially to this position, and you have to evaluate something of that magnitude. But I also was doing a lot of praying, just, Lord, what do you have for me to do?
Sure.
And and going through the interviews was really interesting. Something I had never done before at that level, and met some outstanding people that it's great to have relationships with now in my current post.
Yeah.
To be able to reach out to someone at the White House pretty quickly that I couldn't do 3 months ago. But the Lord made it pretty clear after the interviews and that I'm right where He has me to be, doing what He has for me to do, and He's been blessing the work. And I'll tell you, one of the things that made it abundantly clear that I needed to keep doing what I was doing was the response I had here at home.
Okay.
The number of people like yourself who were really excited for me that I was even being considered, but then I kept hearing, we're so proud of you, supporting you, hope you get it, don't want you to leave.
Yeah.
And that meant a lot to me. And then really, when the Lord just impressed on me to stay the course here, that I had a huge response of people really happy I was staying.
Okay.
And it just was so
interesting.
So encouraging. And that's so Mississippi.
Yeah, it very much is. And you and I both, of course, we share the love of our state, and we want it to thrive in every area. And you have a passion for that. You've certainly spent a career doing that, and in a position now where you're having an impact, and people see that. And though we certainly could have used you at the national level as well, there's still work to be done here in Mississippi.
Well, and I would tell you, as I would tell anybody, that this was not a Dan Edney thing. They had gotten my name from several referrals, but This was recognition of what we're doing in Mississippi. This is a recognition of my team at the State Department of Health and their great work. It's really a recognition of all the things that's getting national attention across the board, especially in infant mortality work that we're doing. And, and I was so proud of that. It was worth going through the stress and the headache of all of it just to amplify the good work that we're doing.
It's so cool. There's no doubt about that. So, Dr. Edney, do you know much about ultimately who got selected for this role?
Yeah.
Dr. Schwartz?
Dr. Erica Schwartz was the Deputy U.S. Surgeon General under President Trump with his first term.
Okay.
And I don't know her personally. I do know Dr. Jennifer Shuford, who has come on her team as the new Chief Medical Officer. I know her very well. She's Commissioner of Health in Texas. But everything I've heard about Dr. Schwartz is very good. I mean, she's extremely well trained. Her credentials are impeccable. She has a long history of public service in the U.S. Public Health Corps. So I'm very encouraged and optimistic for the CDC moving forward. And as I told them when I asked to withdraw from the consideration was, look, I can do a lot in my current post. I'll be president of my National Association for State Health Officers this fall.
Yeah.
And that, I think I can be a better service to the public health of the nation doing what I'm doing and staying on track.
I see.
And will be, nothing but supportive and make sure everybody knew they had a friend in Mississippi.
Okay. That's awesome. And she has a bit of a connection in her history, being a member of the Coast Guard and I think involved in the oil spill, right?
Yes. And then had a prominent role, with Project Warp Speed for President Trump and helping states implement, the vaccination program in early 2021. So, I mean, she has plenty of experience. I think she'll do a great job.
Yeah. Well, it's a critically important role, and from all I can tell, she seems like a highly qualified pick, as of course you would be as well. So I know whenever you're on, you always like to tout improvement and good news about not just health care in Mississippi, but the health of Mississippians, and we make that distinction. So how are we doing?
Better than we were, not where we need to be.
Sure.
You hear me say that a lot, but it's true. And we're just not as bad as we were. And that got a lot of attention, Gerard.
No doubt.
I'm 64 years old, and for my whole life we have been seriously dead last in population health outcomes, but we're not anymore, and we have not been for 3 years.
Yeah.
And the trajectory is upward, and that's no small thing, and you've heard me preach for 4 years, y'all, we did it in education. Apply the same strategies to population health, and you'll see the health of our population get better.
Yeah.
A lot of doctors. And so do I. And I have worked in healthcare at many levels in our state. We do not have bad healthcare. We have bad health.
Agree.
And that's a multifactorial, complicated issue driven by poverty in a large extent. And so we have to keep promoting policy that supports access to quality health care, but we have to go further and promote good public health policy that helps individuals be healthier themselves. And so, the biggest thing I agree with Secretary Kennedy and that the president is pushing is focusing on food as medicine, focusing on proper nutrition, exercise, obesity rate reductions. All these things will pay huge dividends down the road for the population health of not just Mississippi, but for the country. And that's where my focus is. Our number one public health challenge right now is infant mortality. We just cannot remain, because we're still 50th by a long shot there, and that is unacceptable to all of us in Mississippi. But we have good strategy for coming off the bottom and saving the lives of as many babies as we can. And I just felt the need to see that work through. And our number one population health challenge is obesity.
Okay.
And we have good, thoughtful strategies there. Both of those are heavy lifts, but we got to do it.
Okay. With respect to the infant mortality, Dr. Edney, is this a function of just lack of access, readily available access to quality health care during the gestation period? Mm-hmm. Is it lifestyles of the pregnant mother? Yeah. All the above? What's going on here?
All the above and more. We do not have enough workforce to take care of all the high-risk pregnant moms that we have in all areas of the state. As we do in many areas of healthcare, we have a maldistribution of obstetricians. We have, half the obstetricians are within 5 miles of where you and I are sitting right now. Yep. And the other half are spread out all over the place. Okay. So you get into the Delta, a landmass the size of Delaware, we have 5 or 6 OBs who are delivering babies. That's all.
Yeah.
And we have women driving 2 hours or more to get to them. And when you only have that many, they fill up quickly. And so we have many areas of the state where we don't have enough workforce, and we just have to look at things differently to improve workforce. The Rural Health Transformation Grant Program is going to put a lot of money into workforce development.
Okay.
And so that's going to help. We're working hard at the health department to improve access to care in our smaller rural counties where there's nothing else there, but we do have some pregnant women that are high risk. For me, I know we have to get upstream as far as we can, and the furthest upstream we can get is for women of childbearing age to be healthy before they get pregnant.
Okay.
And right now that is not true in Mississippi. We have to make it true in order to save our babies. We're losing babies because their mamas aren't healthy and the pregnancy's not healthy. The mama doesn't die, but the baby does not survive because of all those complications.
We got a break right now. If you can hang around,
sure.
We'll keep the discussion going. We've got Dr. Dan Edney, Mississippi's State Health Officer, in the Element Well studio. Coming right back.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
Now, on to the real part.
Dynamite! On SuperTalk Mississippi.
It was a beautiful day. Sun beat down. I had the radio on. I was driving. Trees went by. Me and Del were singing Little Runaway. I was flying. Yeah, running down a dream that never would come.
We are back with you in the Element Well studio. We're visiting with Dr. Dan Edney. He is the State Health Officer. So, Dr. Edney, you were telling us that one of the primary risk factors for a problematic pregnancy is obesity of the mother, right?
Yes. Poverty drives everything. There's a direct correlation, poverty and obesity.
Yeah.
And then in health, obesity is driving our bus of bad outcomes because it generates excess diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, stroke, and preterm births, which a lot of people just don't realize. 44% of our preterm births are to moms who have an unhealthy weight.
So we have a question on our text line. How is the obesity rate so high, yet we have millions of food insecure areas in our state?
Great question, because they're directly correlated.
Okay.
I'm a Delta boy. The Delta is some of the richest farmland in the world.
Yeah.
But it's all row crops.
Yeah.
It doesn't grow food for local consumption at all. And the number of gardens has evaporated from when I was a kid.
That's a good point, yeah.
You drive through the Mississippi Delta, and we have a lot of communities that are more than 45 minutes away from a true grocery store. And so a lot of food is bought locally at the little quick marts.
Yeah.
And they're full of unhealthy, cheap food, which is one of the reasons the governor applied for the SNAP waiver to cut out some of that unhealthy food with SNAP. But, there's so much incentive healthier food costs more. It's harder to get. It's less available. So what's really available are the highly processed foods, high caloric intake, low nutritional value, generates a lot of our obesity, complicated by the fact that we are much more sedentary than we were 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And all of that is just a perfect storm generating our obesity levels. So, anytime you pass a DG Market, that's a grocery store.
Okay.
And you're seeing those pop up more. And so that's part of the solution. Mississippi State and the Extension Service been working really hard on elimination of food deserts. Now you can use your EBT card at farmers markets.
Right.
And promoting more farmers markets in the food deserts.
Okay.
And then looking at incentivizing grocery stores for smaller communities. The margin of grocery stores is really razor thin.
Yeah.
So doing what makes sense to incentivize them to be in those deserts really helps the health of our state.
Okay. Makes sense. Well, maybe we can I know you work on this continuously, and your team does, and just need to keep working on this. And something you talk about all the time when you're with us is there's an economic bent to this as well.
Absolutely. I shared with you before when we calculated it was about 3 years ago, the negative economic impact to the state for our poor health scores was about $25 billion for heart disease, cancer, accidents, which are our top 3 causes of death, and then maternal infant death, just because we all care so much about it. $25 billion negative impact to the state's economy.
Sure.
Well, that's back when we were really like 60th in health.
Okay.
We couldn't. The only reason we were 50th, there wasn't anybody else to get in front of us. Well, now we're legit 48th and climbing.
Yeah.
So that $25 billion has shrunk. I'd say probably we've improved that number by about 11% because our preventable death rate has gone down. You're going to see our life expectancy go up.
Okay.
And as you see that is positive economic development for our state. Those are real dollars. That's not monopoly money. That's real money. That's less headwind for our state's economy. So all the things that we're doing with economic development will be more successful as we improve the health. And as an employer, do you want a healthy workforce or an unhealthy workforce?
Totally. Anything like that interferes with productivity.
And as industry looks to invest in Mississippi, they look at the health. And the health of the Delta is still terrible. The health of Southwest Mississippi is not great at all. We have some bright spots around the state, and that tends to be where industry wants to invest because it's less expensive for their health care coverage.
You're right. They absolutely do consider that. They pay close attention to that because it affects their bottom line, and that's their business. So. And
I'm a big believer, Gerard, the solution to poverty is not more federal programs throwing tax dollars into black pits. It is invest in education. Let's continue the success we're making there. Invest in health at all levels, and let's continue improving there. And education plus health equals wealth. And that's the answer to poverty in my estimation.
Agree. I like it. So we have had some improvement that you've been making some news on here lately, right, where we moved up in a category or two.
We have. We have made more population health metric improvements than any other state the last couple of years. And that has moved us from the way at the back of the pack to helping us catch up, and now moved us above 2 other states that we've never been ahead of before. So we're ahead of Louisiana. We're now ahead of Arkansas, and I got my eyes on Alabama. I'm just determined that we're going to do everything we can at the State Department of Health to help improve the population health of this state for all the reasons we talked about. The most important reason, though, is our people deserve to be healthier and happier and have happier, more joyful, productive lives.
It's a quality of life thing.
When you're sick, nothing's good.
No, it's no doubt about it. And you can only focus on that as well.
That's right.
So, and it's just saps you of everything. essentially. So, well, yeah, I welcome that. It's good news, and I know you were highly focused on that, and were a big cause of us moving up the ladder a bit, and I applaud you for having even higher aspirations. It's what we got to do.
Well, I will tell you, the folks in Washington were very impressed.
They're paying attention, aren't they?
Paying attention. They have seen the state with the greatest challenges and the fewest resources be very successful.
Yeah.
And so we don't need to whine and groan because of this or that. We just need to get about the Lord's work and get it done.
There was some legislation this past session that you were involved in, I guess. I had certainly a strong interest in the cannabis program, which falls under your purview. There was some legislation, I believe, that would have perhaps expanded that. What's the story there?
Yeah, we were supportive of the Right to Try bill. That came just, since we've been in operation now almost 4 years, we're seeing where the law got it right, and we're seeing where it missed on a few things. And, one of the things that it missed on, we're not having the uptake in the hospice world that we should be. And that's really where medical cannabis shines, is in terminal care, end-of-life care to alleviate pain and suffering.
Yeah.
And it relates to, just hospice doctors not wanting to be cannabis doctors, and I get it.
Yeah.
And then we've had some individual cases that just didn't qualify under current statute, but they had tried everything. And so the Right to Try bill was working with individual treating physicians, not certifying physicians, but your doctor, petitioning me to allow his or her patient to access the program under their supervision and to have a right to try.
Okay.
And it was on a case-by-case basis. We were very supportive of that. The governor was as well. That as it was narrowly written, it was amended that expanded it to out-of-state folks.
He expressed concerns about that,
So it may come back next year. We'll see.
Okay. The president signing, I think, an EO in the last couple of days concerning sort of escalating in the speed at which these research on psychedelic drugs, mainly for PTSD treatment, right?
Yes.
This just happened.
And I think there's a lot of and Chairman Creekmore was really interested in an Ibogaine project, and that did pass and was signed by the governor. And we had to kind of oversee it, not do the research, but oversee the coordination of the research. And so the president's executive order related, especially to Ibogaine, is going to make that much easier.
Okay.
It's Schedule 1. It needs to stay Schedule 1, but with potential medical use, meaning allow it to research to be done.
Yeah.
And I think there is a lot of promise with PTSD, and we need to look at it.
Okay. Have you got to go? You want to take a run? Because I want to ask you about just what's going on in the healthcare industry in our state, and as it relates to the delivery of healthcare.
Absolutely, happy to.
We're coming right back with Dr. Dan Eddy. He's the state's health officer. Stay with us.
From the Seabrook.com.
Get on! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on!
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Turn it up!
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. We're having a discussion with Dr. Dan Eddy. He is Mississippi's State Health Officer with the Mississippi Department of Health. So we've talked a lot about health and making some progress and improvements there. Still some work to do. your department, your team, hyper-focused on that. It feels like, Dr. Edney, that the governor, our legislature, starting to take a stronger interest in that issue as well.
I would totally agree. Compared to where we were 4 years ago, a large part of my job was raising awareness of just how unhealthy as a population our state was. And I can tell you from day one, they were listening and learning. And I just kept following that message up with the data and giving the best information, as we were identifying it, and really leadership at all levels, buying into it. When I took over August of 2022, we had investment in public health per capita of about $15 per person, which Alabama's is $54 per person.
Wow.
Tennessee, $75 per person. And I was preaching, you get what you pay for, folks. We would not have improved in education without strategic investment. And I said, I'm not asking to invest in the agency. I can handle that. I can run this agency in a cost-effective manner. I need help investing in these population health challenges like infant mortality, maternal mortality, obesity, the things that's killing the largest number of Mississippians, access to care, improved screening rates in the state, for heart disease and cancer. And they answered that by doing exactly that.
Okay.
Investing in programmatic work at the state level. So now we're up closer to $30 per capita.
Okay.
So basically a doubling in the state's investment in public health without investing in state government. And so
makes sense.
I knew where their appetite was, and pivoted that way.
Yeah.
And it's been very effective. We could not have done nearly what we've done in 3 years without that state level investment. Okay. And then also taking care of business on our side of the street. Getting fees adjusted the way they need to be, so that we're not using state tax dollars for the regulatory work of for-profit industry, and that's swung our budget $8 million a year from 3 years ago, just by getting fees where they needed to be that hadn't been adjusted in the decade.
Interesting.
So just closing those gaps, and that allows more funding into population health research and programmatic work. So, we've come a long way in 4 years. We still have a long way to go, but I'm optimistic. I really am.
So we've talked about the health of Mississippi's population. Let's talk about the healthcare delivery apparatus. I guess the big news, Greenwood LaFleur Hospital has filed for bankruptcy and has been struggling financially for quite some time. So I don't know that this comes as a total shock. I know there's some discussions with UMMC that's happened in the past as well.
That's right.
So looks like maybe those are ongoing again. But I think the bigger concern is that there are several other hospitals that are reportedly in difficult financial situation as well.
You look back to the fall of 2022, and we were looking at a rural hospital crisis.
Yeah.
I was looking at the financial shape of hospitals in the Delta and Southwest Mississippi, and Greenwood LaFleur was the first on the map. But they weren't alone, and I was expecting dominoes to start falling. Yeah. And then enhanced MHAP occurred. The governor approved that, and that put a huge cash infusion to the Medicaid program into those struggling
about $700 million, if I remember right.
Yes, a year.
A year.
And that really stabilized most of our hospitals. We went from having like 20 hospitals in grave danger. Now we're down to more like 3. And we just have to understand our current hospital system, where our locations are based off the needs of the 1960s.
Okay.
Not, and certainly not 2060, where we're going to be down the road.
Yeah.
So I mean, and that's where some of the CON reform legislation was looking at, was taking some burden off of hospitals to do what they want to do, what they think they need to do, and getting the state out of the way to let them do that. And they do have better understanding of what the funding challenges are going to be from the federal level, both Medicare and Medicaid, and are operating better in that situation. I would say we are definitely our hospitals are much healthier than they were 3, 4, 5 years ago. And I'm also optimistic with the Rural Health Transformation Grant Program that $200 million a year going out into rural health care, all providers, not just hospitals, but all providers in our rural counties. I really believe that it will be transformative and will help set up rural health care for the 21st century. Okay. That's the whole purpose of that grant. It's not to rescue anybody. It's to transform how we do rural health care for the future so that Mississippians who choose to live in rural communities have access to good quality care, at all levels. Yeah. And that's what that program's going to be looking at.
Makes sense. So we've got some reforms in the Affordable Care Act marketplaces, and I track as much as is being reported through Kaiser Family Foundation, probably one of the better resources for that information, especially when it comes to insurance coverage in the country in various forms. So the expectation there is that a lot of Mississippians who did have coverage are going to opt not to purchase insurance in the exchanges and just be among the uninsured. That could put some additional pressure on hospitals and all providers. It hasn't been felt yet.
It absolutely will, which is why I was pleased that the legislature approved the ICRA program at the state level, and I don't know what that acronym stands for.
Individual Coverage Reimbursement Arrangement.
But it allows small employers to get a tax credit for having health accounts for the employees, and basically it's an opportunity to pay the premiums and deductibles for the employees if they choose to, and if they do that, they get a tax credit at state and federal level. I think that's
dollar for dollar credit, $400 first year, $200 in subsequent years.
That's excellent. So I'm hoping if business will take advantage of that, that may close some of that gap that's widening right now. It very much is widening right now.
Because a lot of those who are enrolled in the exchanges actually work for small employers that just don't have the resources financially to offer health insurance to their employees. And they're not required to by law, have to have 50 employees or more before that hits you. So, I think that will close some of that gap.
And, as you and I talked about, I don't care how we close the gap. We just have to close the gap. We will not reduce the excess death related to cancer until our screening rates get up. And we have to have as many Mississippians as possible who have a primary care medical home so that their screenings are being done and we're identifying disease early and intervening, and that we're educating our folks through their primary care medical homes on how not to get diabetes in the first place. How not to have hypertension. Just because everybody in your family's had diabetes and hypertension doesn't mean you have to. But they need access to medical homes for that to happen.
And that's something I know you've talked about a lot, is the fact that we do have a relatively low attach rate of primary care doctors to our population, right?
That's right. Especially in many rural areas of the state.
Okay. Which means that they're likely not going in for annual wellness visits and having all the various screenings that are available today to perhaps detect something way in advance where you can easily address it, and it's becomes a matter of the health outcome of that patient as well as an economic issue again.
Absolutely. It's so much less expensive to identify disease early or to prevent disease in the first place by having a colonoscopy done, and catching those polyps before they're cancerous, get that dealt with.
I'm living proof of that. I've talked about it many times. So.
Treating stage 3 and stage 4 colon cancer is incredibly expensive.
And painful for the patient, not very pleasant experience.
But you and I know how hard it is just to break away from work and go to the doctor for checkups when our doctor's in our own community.
Yeah.
What if your doctor's 2 hours away?
I can't comprehend it. It becomes an all-day deal.
Yeah, it really does.
And that's just difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, well, we're making improvement. That's the good news. You recognize, we all do, we got to keep hammering away at it, make it even better.
Absolutely.
I agree.
We're going to make it better together.
I'm with you, Dr. Edney. Appreciate you coming in, man. Yeah,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Dan Edney, the State Health Officer of Mississippi. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio. Stay with us.
Upper Mississippi.
You know what that means.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
We'll do it live
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
That would be the one and only Bruce Blackman, Starbuck.
He's still putting out music.
I know. I follow him on social media. He's quite the delight. We ought to see if we can get him on the program.
Yeah, he was on with Azar about a month ago.
I remember. I was sitting here listening because I was still in the studio after the show, and he came on, and I was fascinated listening to him tell his story. Very talented. Not many so-called rock genre of songs that have a xylophone in them, right? But, man, it just worked out great. And, of course, the famous line, you say you came to Baltimore from Ole Miss, a class of 7-4 gold ring is what he said.
That's right. Yeah.
So I just received a question from one of my good friends and bandmates, Representative Joseph Tubb from down there in Hattiesburg. And I didn't get this to Dr. Edney during the interview, but I'm actually familiar with this here, Will. Talked about it a lot. And it has to do with what's called community rating. So the question is, skyrocketing cost of health insurance, do we ever see, this is from Representative Tubb, insurance companies increasing rates for obese people like they do with smokers? This appears to me to be an incentive for better behavior. So I agree, Representative Tubb. So here's what happened, Will, in the Affordable Care Act, so-called Obamacare. Before that, insurers, notwithstanding any state-level regulations that would preclude this, because remember, insurance for the most part is heavily regulated at the state level and almost totally regulated at the state level until Obamacare passed. And Obamacare enacted a series of reforms and requirements imposed on health insurers nationwide, no matter what state. So here's where I'm going. Before that, it was common for a health insurance company to charge a significantly higher amount for premiums for a person or a family that was considered a higher health risk. Location, believe it or not, one. Just as he was talking about, how far are you away from the people that can take care of you? Because if you are far away, you're less likely to seek regular treatment. Therefore, you're more likely to contract something that's more serious, and that costs a whole lot more money to deal with. Tobacco use, of course. Consumption of alcohol. Family size, believe it or not, figures into that model somehow. Being a female, females just have more parts, more likely to need medical care. Of course, age. You're more likely to be ill based on your age. So the term used to describe that ratio, it's called community rating. The folks in the insurance industry, this is common language to them, right? It's called community rating. So before Obamacare, man, they may say, wait, you're old, you're female, you live a long way away from health care, you got all the high risk factors. Boom, we're going to charge you 10 times more than a young, healthy person that doesn't have any of those risk factors. So what the Affordable Care Act did is it said, nope, we're limiting that to a 3-to-1 ratio. No matter how sick you are, no matter what all the various high-risk health factors you have, 3 times more than the lowest rated person is all you can charge insurance companies. So guess what happened? The premiums for the young, healthy people actually went up, and the older, sicker people went down in some cases. Here's what the expectation was, the theory behind it was. Got to follow the math here. The theory was, well, we're going to make everybody pay a penalty if they don't have insurance. Therefore, all these young, healthy people that currently don't have insurance, they're going to go buy it, in which case we're going to have all these young, healthy people that hardly need any health care. Therefore, we're not going to have any expenses. I'm talking about from the perspective of an insurer, an insurance company. They're going to be in our pool. And therefore, even though we're limited on this community rating thing to 3-to-1, won't be a big deal because we're going to have all these new, young, healthy customers that want to avoid paying the penalty. And then guess what happened? We did away with the penalty. And they said, and then the penalty, by the way, and I distinctly remember seeing insurance executives who were excited about the prospect of having a bunch of new customers because they thought this penalty surely is going to motivate them to go buy insurance. They said the penalty's not stiff enough. People would pay the $200 penalty over $300 a month for insurance, $200 a year, right? It didn't work out as they expected. Thus, insurance had to go up considerably for everybody to account for this community rating limit cap of 3-to-1. I hope that answered your question there, Representative Tubb. But you're right. In the old days, they used to be able to charge a lot more, and Obamacare said, nope, 3 times more is all you can charge. And unfortunately, the young people said, I'm not buying that insurance because the penalty was not that stiff. And then it got totally eliminated in President Trump's first term. And that's why insurance is so dang expensive and why we all pay for a lot of stuff we don't need. Coming right back after Fox News and Super Talk News with the afternoon portion of Middays.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Thank you so much for joining us. We got the Sports Talk Mississippi. They're going to be at Northwest Mississippi Community College in Senatobia tomorrow. They'll be there for the Celebration of Champions, honoring an incredible year of successes at Northwest Community College. 2 music giants, Post Malone and Jelly Roll. They're going to be making a stop at Vaught Hemingway Stadium on the Ole Miss campus on Friday, June the 5th. Joining them in Oxford will be country music singer Carter Faith. Go to supertalk.fn to find a registration location near you. This giveaway brought to you by Legacy GMC in Laurel. Also, if your business would like to be part of this great promotion with a registration box to attract customers, send us an email, sales@supertalk.fm, sales@supertalk.fm, or call 601-991-2305 for more info. It's going to be a pretty big deal there. And, of course, this Post Malone Jelly Roll ticket giveaway presented by Legacy GMC and Laurel, and we appreciate them for doing that. So you were just telling me on the break about a potentially new smoking ban in the United Kingdom. What's going on there?
That's right. So normally when you do these, something that doctors deem to be harmful for you, they'll say, okay, all right, you get a drink, all right, you got to be 21 or up to drink. Smoking, you got to be 18 or older to smoke. The UK is doing a little twist on that. If you were born after the year 2008, you will no longer be allowed to buy cigarettes. They are going to essentially eliminate a generation of smoking.
That's incredible.
They are going to make it illegal for shops to sell tobacco. They're essentially banning it. It's interesting. They're banning it almost everywhere. So you can't just go out and smoke anywhere.
Yeah. Except
for hospitals. And the idea is that if you're smoking outside a hospital, they'll come up and bring you a pamphlet. Here's a pamphlet. I see you smoking. Here's a pamphlet. You gotta stop. It's pretty crazy.
That is incredible. That totally is. So, well, that's a twist. But I guess you could look at that and say that the theory is, well, if you're never hooked on it at a young age, right?
Yeah.
You're less likely to pick the habit up.
This also would include, again, this is in the UK, this would also include vaping. Part of this law is vaping will be banned in cars carrying children. I don't know how they plan on enforcing that. If they see a car seat, I don't know.
That'd be kind of hard.
And then this is a little bit, this is where they kind of go, I'm all for not smoking, all this kind of stuff, but this is where they go a little bit overboard. People will be allowed to continue smoking and vaping in their homes.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
so I guess you're not going to
gosh.
come bust down the door if I light up a cigarette.
Yeah. In your home. Okay.
They're going to allow that.
That's just crazy. We'll see how that goes. I don't know. Might we see a movement in this country towards that as well? Not sure. Well, the deadline is approaching for over there in Pakistan for the Iranians and the Americans to reach some sort of agreement that would make a ceasefire hold and hopefully reopen the Strait of Hormuz. That's kind of what's on the table right now. But at this point, not really sure where that's going. It's unpredictable, I would say. You get mixed signals from both sides. Let's see. I saw Starbuck in concert in Greenwood in 1976. Man, that was when they were in their heyday, talking about Bruce Blackman.
Yep.
And the band. So he's originally from the Delta, is he not? He has a connection there.
Yeah, I think he's from the Delta. And, of course, the band he was in before Starbuck was Eternity's Children.
Yeah.
With our old buddy Charlie Ross, who works for us in the Delta. And, of course, they had that, I believe it was Miss Bluebird was the big song, and they played on, I think they played on, American Bandstand or something like that.
Yeah.
It was one of those big national shows. Well, that group broke up. He went and formed Starbuck, and I don't think they're still doing anything, but he is still making music to this day.
Yeah, interesting. So the Trump administration is launching the old tariff refund. That's because that's what the court said they got to do after collecting a bunch of money on the tariffs. Some confusion as to who qualifies for those refunds. The court really didn't address the refunds in the ruling, but a judge at the U.S. Court of International Trade, I didn't even know there was such a thing, determined last month that companies who were subject to these tariffs were entitled to get their money back. Companies that paid tariffs under the IEEPA is what it's called, and that is customs brokers who paid duties on an importer's behalf are eligible for the refunds. Consumers many of whom bore these higher prices, are not eligible for such claims. They got to do it within 60 to 90 days for a refund to be issued, according to agency spokespeople. So you can imagine a bunch of people hiring lawyers to help them with all this. Not really surprising. But this is just unprecedented. We collected money, and now we're sending it back. And this was based on a 6-3 decision that happened on February 20th, when the Supreme Court said that the president usurped Congress's tax-setting authority last April when he set these tariffs into motion. So he said, well, I was just invoking a 1977 emergency powers law. The court didn't agree with that. And like I said, they didn't address the refund process, but looks like that's underway. It's $166 billion, by the way. 300,000 importers paid a total of $166 billion. That's mind-boggling how much that is. Man. Canada has a similar law about smoking in your car with children in it. Okay, on the C Spire text line. How about that? It's not about saving lives. It's Big Brother, says Dave from Ripley. Let's see. The last 2 weeks I was in UK and did not hear about this, but I looked it up, and it's true. Interesting.
It just happened this morning, I think.
Okay. Interesting. There are a lot of judges in this country who are just idiots, says Paul in Meridian. Well, that's probably true, but I assume, Paul, you're talking about the judge here that ordered the tariffs to be repaid. I mean, it was suspicious day one, and it no doubt, and the president knew that, and there was always a possibility the Supreme Court may come down with this decision and nullify all that. So it was a risky move at a minimum. Let's see. I asked Rhino the same question. I saw where the president recently said it is concerning and they are trying to figure out if they are connected. Oh, he's talking about, I'm sorry, I missed this from Ben. Will, ask you, Will, do you have any thoughts about these government scientists that have been found dead or have gone missing in the last year or so? I think the number is up to 11. Yeah, it's either 11 or 13. It's bizarre, man.
It is a very bizarre thing, and you've got some mainstream publications that are going, this stuff kind of starts out there, as rumors, all this kind of stuff, and then people on the fringe kind of pick it up, and a lot of times people just dismiss it out of hand. And then, you start looking at it and you go, wait a minute.
I know.
Maybe there is something to this. I remember I had the same reaction with do you remember the Cuba syndrome, the Havana syndrome thing?
Yeah.
I thought, that's just some internet rumor. And then you start reading more about it and some, real publications come out with some info about it. You go, wait a minute, that might actually be true.
I know. It's totally bizarre and no explanation at this point. Of course, also don't forget that the government has registered aliens.gov, and nobody knows exactly what's going on with that.
That's another weird one.
That got some attention a couple of weeks ago. Like, why did the government go out and lay claim to that URL, aliens.gov? Something weird. But looks like we may get some information disseminated about that.
Most of these have some sort of connection with NASA.
I know.
It's
coming right
bizarre.
back.
Hey, this is Bob. Just
check it out. Let's do this.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. The Eagles Hotel, California. Well, the NASDAQ, the Dow, all in the red. And that's just because everybody's just on edge about what is going to transpire with respect to the United States and Iran meeting in Pakistan, as Barack Obama used to say, trying to come up with a deal they can live with to end this dang war. I think people are weary of it, tired of it, ready to get it behind us. I agree with them. Southwest Airlines, turns out that they had a couple of flights that almost had a bit of a midair. And this was kind of a close call. This was a situation that occurred a couple of days ago. Had to evade a mid-air collision at Nashville International Airport. That was on Saturday. Southwest pilots told the air traffic controller they received onboard alerts urging them to take action, with one flight then climbing and the other descending to avoid a crash. But almost out of midair. Of course, that comes on the heels of this problem we had at LaGuardia not too long ago. Remember that? An Air Canada plane crashed into a rescue truck at LaGuardia last month. Killed both pilots. Both were given the go-ahead to proceed by air traffic control. Man. Stop, a controller demanded, according to heart-stopping audio from the tower. Truck one, stop. Truck one, stop. A controller can then be heard in the background saying, I messed up. Man, oh man. So that's one of those things where mistakes truly can cost life. And that's what happened. The city of Jackson, Mississippi, I have to say, Will, I got a little bit of a chuckle out of this one. The city of Jackson, Mississippi, is considering new rules for data center projects. They're talking about following the playbook of some other states and cities, mainly left-leaning, that are seeking to block any new data center construction. There is a state that's about to pass such a law, the state of Maine. There's some other communities as well. There's some where community leaders have voted to allow construction and then been recalled at the ballot box.
It was at Missouri. They fired almost the entire...
Yeah, exactly.
4 incumbents just days after the city council approved the development of a $6 billion data center.
Exactly. So here in Jackson, here where we're sitting right now, city council looks to perhaps totally prohibit the construction of any new data centers. Now, something to point out, there aren't any data centers in the city of Jackson. There has been tepid interest. I know that for a fact. But it was not something that the suitors sought to pursue with further vigor. I think this is a huge mistake on the part of the city of Jackson. I continue to find that these fears are grossly overblown, and I also am always intrigued by the fact that most of these opponents and detractors use a data center to promote their anti-data center message. Seem to be clueless about that. This measure is being introduced by Ward 4 Councilman and Council President Brian Grizzell. So under city rules, ordinances such as this must first be introduced at a council meeting before then the council then ultimately votes on adoption of the ordinance a couple of weeks later. So you know the story. Amazon Web Services has 3 projects, 2 in Madison County, 1 now in Clinton, in Hinds County, adjacent to the city of Jackson. You got Compass in Lauderdale County, a bio under construction in Brandon that approved in August 25, and of course Elon Musk's XIO facility in DeSoto County. So I find this, again, pretty fascinating that they're putting a moratorium on something they've never had. So 7 facilities in Mississippi in the last 2 years. Compass is building an 8-building campus in Meridian. That's expected to be a $10 billion investment. So just looking at the map, you got Vicksburg to the west, essentially on our border with Louisiana. You got Meridian to our east, just a stone's throw from the border on the east with Alabama. You got XIO, Musk's investment, up in DeSoto County on the line there with Memphis. And then you got 1 in Rankin County, 2 in Madison County, 1 in north of us, and or I should say west of us in Clinton, our position right here, which is in Hinds County, but not in the city of Jackson. You know, this is another thing where I believe that data center progress and pursuit can continue and needs to continue and should be done in a responsible manner. It is possible to blend these investments, these projects, with good stewardship of the environment and of the communities. It's absolutely possible. I'm witnessing it in Madison County right now, no doubt about it. Most people aren't even aware that those facilities are within striking distance of their location as they're traveling up 55, for example, just south of Canton, where the big AWS campus is situated. It's behind the Walmart, if you're familiar with what the Walmart is, and I know a lot of people listening that travel through central Mississippi on 55, they see the Walmart off to the west. You see a water tower behind it. In the background, right there is where Amazon has 12 buildings under construction. They are about 250,000 square feet per building. They're coming in at a price tag that was actually considerably higher than originally projected. And by the way, 5 of those buildings are online in production, producing services, and the tax assessor of Madison County is on hand to assess the value of that property. You've got a real property component, a personal property component. The real property would be the land and the building, so forth, and the personal property would be essentially everything inside, all the assets inside, the IT infrastructure, the HVAC infrastructure, the cabling plant, security systems, all the what we call physical infrastructure. So you've got the IT electronic, and then you got the physical, and those work in concert to produce data center-based services, of course. So that's going on. And then the campus that's further south in Ridgeland, not far from where we're sitting right now, really wouldn't know about that unless you take the twists and turns off of Highland Colony, where we were 2 weeks ago hosting the show. A big expanse of land out there that is situated kind of between 220, the loop around the metro area, and then Highland Colony Parkway. That's just a 4-lane avenue, if you will, that extends from 463 to the north all the way down to 220 there, County Line Road to the south. So, and those of you in the central Mississippi area are probably familiar. Those that aren't, if you're traveling up 55, essentially, if you look to the west, it's about a mile and a half out to the west as you're crossing on 55 around the Ridgeland exit. That's where all that's situated. So that's going on right now. Jackson needs a shot in the arm economically. I think I'd be trying to figure something out. Again, these companies don't want to come in and cause problems for the community. Far from it. So I would be inclined to investigate. Something else I found out, Will, last week, you know, there's concerns about data centers and their consumption of water. You're familiar with the Nissan plant up the street, huh, on 55? uses more water than AWS data centers. Been in place for 20 years. Nobody said a word. So much misinformation about that. So much misinformation. I'm for addressing the concerns, but let's do it first by framing the issue with facts, not hyperbole, because there's a lot of that, believe it or not. Coming right back.
From the Seabrook home, Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Welcome to our shop
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Okay, now you have a good one.
Welcome back. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Are you thinking about retirement? Do you have a plan? Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income growth and guarantees. So, it's a big day, if you will, in the state of Virginia. Here's why. They're going to the polls today to vote on a redistricting measure. All eyes are on it. If yes wins, Virginians will amend their constitutional guidelines on redistricting and give the Democrats in the Commonwealth the opportunity to redraw the state's congressional districts. That would flip 4 seats. 4. Held by Republicans. So, a no vote, Virginia will reject the attempt to amend the Constitution and thereby stop any chance of that happening. So, what you got going on, Will, is a war, as you know, between California, Texas, Virginia to apply and implement all these redistricting proposals to really work the map in favor of whichever party happens to be in control of the state. So, obviously, California, Virginia, the Democrats have that control. In Texas, it's the Republicans. What the net of all that is, it's hard to tell at this point. But just know that today, Virginians are going to the polls to vote on this measure. And that's a big dang deal.
Is it expected to pass?
It is expected to pass. And it's amazing the amount of money being spent on a ballot measure, both for and against.
Oh, I know.
I mean, more than someone running for U.S. Senate in the state.
Well, it impacts.
Yeah, big time.
Big time. Did you see what James Carville said? I believe it was yesterday.
Yeah, I did.
I mean,
I'm going to share it. So he said, yeah, let's get rid of that filibuster. Let's make D.C. and Puerto Rico a state and pack the Supreme Court. Right?
Yep. He said, don't advertise it. Don't run on it.
Yeah.
Just run your normal campaign, and when you get in office,
do it. Yeah. So, when I go around the state speaking, often I'll start my remarks off with, there's frustration, of course, on the part of, honestly, Republicans and Democrats. They feel like, we give you control and you don't get anything done, right? You hear this all the time. Not really considering that you still have this issue in the Senate where you got to get past the filibuster. I mean, that's extremely controversial. Even today, there are some who say we ought to end it right now and make permanent some of the president's agenda. And there's others who say, oh, no, not so fast, because if we do, when the Democrats flip the script on us, then they're going to turn around and do stuff. And so I'll start my speeches off by saying, we get frustrated, but I encourage you to consider what was prevented. What did we prevent by not electing Kamala Harris and giving control of the House and Senate to the Democrats, and just how close we were to some of this crazy stuff becoming law when Joe Biden was president and the Democrats had control of both houses by, you remember the Senate was 50-50 and the vice president could be a tiebreaker, but it was Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema who would not vote to end the filibuster, to change the rules, which would allow a simple majority to pass their agenda. But here's what they want. Carville is telling you what the Democrats ultimately seek for whenever the stars align for them and they've got that lawmaking ability. They're going to end the filibuster because they don't have Manchin and Sinema there, and I'm not sure there's a Democrat today that would stand in that gap, talking about in the U.S. Senate.
Fetterman's the only one.
He's the only one potentially, right. Yep. I agree. But we were just talking earlier about how the map's kind of shaping up in their power. They may be able to lose Fetterman and still have 51 to get that through, right, to change the rules. But there's no doubt. Make D.C. a state, and that means they get 2 senators. Make Puerto Rico a state. There's 2 more. That means may never have Republican control in our lifetime of the U.S. Senate. Pack the Supreme Court. No doubt about it. They're not happy because they want the Supreme Court to be a political tool. That's not how it was designed. They don't care. It's that, okay, we can't get it through the normal legislative process. We're going to pack the Supreme Court, get somebody to file a lawsuit, and get the Supreme Court to essentially what happened in Roe v. Wade, with not even rooted in law. It was a bad decision from the get-go. It took 50 years to get rid of it, essentially, from a legal perspective. But a couple other things. Totally federalize elections. I don't mean what the Democrats claim about the SAVE Act, which is not federalizing elections. It's simply requiring states to implement procedures and policies to ensure that, hey, only American citizens are allowed to register and then cast a ballot to vote. That's it. But what they want is way more onerous than that, and would extend the reach and the control of the federal government down into the states to completely take over the elections process. There would be no more voter ID, for example.
Yep.
That would be gone. And every state would have early voting. I mean, just everything, mail-out voting, everything that increases the risk for election integrity, but increases their possibility of scamming the system. That's what they do. How about the PRO Act? You don't even hear about that. Forcing everybody to join a labor union and ending right-to-work states. And all right-to-work states, what that essentially means, if you're not familiar with that concept, is if you work at a company that is a union shop, you have the right to work there even if you don't want to join the union. They would end that. Nope. You got to join a union. Their goal is to make everybody join a labor union because they derive significant power out of that. Medicare for all. Eliminate the private health insurance. We all get mad at private health insurers. Imagine there being none. And now everybody is covered by government insurance. That's on the list. By the way, Roe v. Wade didn't ban abortion in this country. All that did is send it back to the states. The right thing to do, but in doing so, many aren't aware, abortion has increased in this country since Roe v. Wade. If your goal was to reduce or end abortion by repealing Roe v. Wade, folks, that didn't happen. Quite the opposite. Abortion's up because the blue states said, wait, we have control now? Oh, unlimited abortion. And the red states tightened it up, but turns out there are a lot more people in the blue states, and there are a lot of people in the red states that travel to the blue states to have the procedure. So what they would do is pass law making abortion a right. Then the Supreme Court would have to uphold it because it's law. The whole reason the Supreme Court ruled against Roe v. Wade, it wasn't because that abortion is illegal. It's because the Constitution doesn't say that abortion's a right. That's insane. And they said, you guys, you court in 72, you got this wrong. It wasn't an abortion issue. It was a legal issue. It was a legal issue. So the consequences for that are, well, the blue state said, up until the birth, right?
Yep.
Unlimited. And every corporation in America added abortion coverage to their dang health insurance. So that's just another thing. And then unbelievably strict gun control. You know that's on the list. You think about the wish list that Democrats have that they can't get through because of the filibuster, all that goes away.
All that goes away, and there's no moderates.
Yeah, that's right.
Very, very few moderates now.
They're all crazy. They're all loony.
This is what, the party's moving further and further to the polls, to the left or to the right. This is what it gets you.
Well, this would break the log jam, and Carville knows this. He's a smart old dude. I don't agree with him on anything, but when it comes to his political savvy, you really can't deny that, can you?
Yeah.
You can't.
And he specifically said, "Don't advertise this."
See, there you go. Because if you do, then you'll have some people raising hell about that, and they'll get cold feet. That's exactly. So I'm telling you, this guy is a dang snake. He knows what he's doing. He's good at it. But you're right. Don't tell anybody. Just go up there and do this kind of quietly. And the next thing you know, we're hit like a ton of bricks.
Yep.
Where abortion is considered a legal right in this country, as an example. And which means that we couldn't ban it like we do in Mississippi.
Yep.
You see how crazy that is? And gun control, through the roof type gun control that he would have. And then again, forcing everybody to join a union in right-to-work states. Putting 4 more Democrat senators in the Senate because they'd make D.C. and Puerto Rico a state. Federalize our elections and pack the Supreme Court. Just for starters. Coming right back, final segment.
You are?
Properly set all controls before recording.
All systems go.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Let the midnight special shine a light on me. Let the midnight special shine a light on me.
Welcome back, everyone. Final segment here of Middays. Ronnie from Ackerman says, when you mentioned the metro area, it made me think about the old Metro Center Mall. Whatever happened to that property? It's a shame what happened to that place. It was nice back in the day. You know, Will, I seem to recall
it's still there.
Still there, and wasn't there a buyer that seemed to have calmed down?
A buyer
what happened
who
to that?
had a history of fraud
that
they knew about, and they still went down that road.
Okay.
I don't know where it sits right now. There was a police substation in there
That's
at one
right.
point. I don't know if that's still there. The DMV was
Seems
there
like
at
it.
one point.
Yep.
That's about it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ronnie. I believe 78 is when it opened. And, Ronnie, I lived literally less than half a mile from there on Robinson Road. If it weren't for the tree line behind my house on some empty property, I could see the deadgum thing from my backyard when I was growing up in West Jackson. And I agree. It really was a cool place. It was something, man, when that deal opened. Will, the food court, that was kind of a new phenomenon. Remember that? And you had the McRae's anchoring on one side, Gaffer's on the other. Who else was in that thing? Holmes. D.H. Holmes started out. That was a big retailer out of New Orleans that was in there as well. And was it J.C. Penney or It was Sears. Sears on the other end. So you had Sears and McRae's that were on either ends, and then it was Holmes, and in the center there was Holmes, D.H. Holmes, and Gaffer's. Yeah, Gaffer's a Alabama, Florida-based retailer that I think that was its first store. No, you know what? Its first store in Mississippi was the Edgewater Mall down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
Back from the 60s, I believe, and then... Yeah. So what are you saying?
There's a new group that's there.
Okay.
Probably about 5 years ago, there was a person who bought it, but she owed a bunch of money to people, and I guess she got pushed out.
Okay.
That was the one that was accused
Wasn't there
of
a country
fraud.
music star or something that was?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just been the latest story that I see. They have plans for it, but they've just encountered a lot of red tape. And
it's kind of sad.
It
is.
When
you see these big structures like that.
It's huge.
It's really a big, and I just have such great memories of it growing up, and I was in college, at the time, and really a cool place, a great place to hang out, to shop, to eat, and they always had like little events and festivals and stuff. It was kind of cool. But I agree, it's kind of sad. It's just how we went. Dan in Hattiesburg says, Jackson Mall still around? Yeah, that was the first one built. Actually, Edgewater Mall on the coast first, and then the Jackson Mall in the 70s came about. I think Edgewater may have been the 60s. That's on Woodrow Wilson. It is. It's called the Jackson Medical Mall, and there's numerous clinics and medical operations that operate in there, many of which are affiliated with UMC, not too far down the road there on Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah, Randy Travis Thomas in Greenwood said.
That's right.
I think that's right. The entire property is fenced and the contractors are working on something, says Scott and Clinton. Okay, because Clinton, of course, right next door, there to the west. Yeah, I think Randy Travis on the C Spire text line. Ben from Madison says it'd be a bad idea to end the filibuster from either side. Would be terrible for our country. If you can't get 60 senators on board, it's probably not good legislation. And goes on to say, I can't think of anything Republicans could do that can't be undone. However, the Dems could do multiple things, including adding states and packing the court, that couldn't be undone without a constitutional amendment. Terrible idea all around. Yeah, that does complicate things. It's actually not the Constitution. I remember going down this rabbit hole a couple of years ago that specifies the number of justices. That is something that's in statute, in law. But still, though, requires the 60 votes. I agree with you, Ben, though, in premise. I really do. Remember that, I think I got this right, Will, it was George Washington that referred to the Senate as the cooling saucer of the federal government, that those crazy people over there in the House come up and stop and send it over, and, their cooler heads will prevail and calm those crazy House guys down, right?
But that ain't the case.
That's not the case anymore.
Them days long gone.
Mo says, what you just explained about the Senate shows how bad a decision it was to let senators be elected rather than appointed by governors. I believe that was the 17th Amendment. Yeah, a lot of people feel that way, Ben. I hear you, and I can lean into that as well. On the C Spire text line, Will, Oktibbeha County Hospital will not allow you to smoke anywhere on their premises. They will make you leave if you go to your car and smoke. Little different theory than
what the UK's doing.
Yeah, hey, see how bad this is?
Yeah, here's a pamphlet.
Not really sure. So companies get refunds, yet they charge us more money. Where's our refund? Talking about the tariffs. That's why I said yesterday, Kevin, they could earn a lot of goodwill if they started rebating people somehow. Out of here today, back tomorrow. Stay safe and God bless.
Your home. A SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.